So why did audiences punish Chelley and Ace for openly strategizing on one of the most watched shows of the summer? And how does that tie into the betrayal that's inherent in all reality television? It's not really about these two people because honestly, we as the audience don't know them. It's that they try to beat the conceit that makes reality television interesting in the first place. Ace and Chelley try to get around one of the most foundational aspects of reality television since the dawn of the genre itself, and that is insufficient consent. In a controversial decision that annoyed audiences, these two dragged out their relationship. This is a show about becoming a couple to win a prize. They thought that that would secure their chances of winning, and they had this idea in their head, this fixed idea of how to play the game. It didn't work. Reality television, like Love Island, is about presenting a game to an audience that has winners and losers. There's a prize, there's manufactured high stakes, and always elements introduced randomly to heighten tension. What those challenges are, that changes on the theme of the show. Is it fitness? Is it love? Is it loyalty? But what do they all have in common? Insufficient consent. Contestants, yes, they consent to be on the show. They obviously know they're on a show. They know the premise of the show. They know the basic rules. They are aware of what the agreed on prize is. But production always holds some cards back. They reserve the right at all times to know more information than the contestants. They reserve the right to control the flow of information to some or all of those contestants. Production also controls information about the timing and the introduction of new rules or new information. If there's a new element or a challenge or a twist to a pre-existing challenge from the format of the show, that's up to them to know. What contestants consent to for the duration of the shoot is that information balance. And that in itself is what makes the consent insufficient or uninformed. You will not be given full details about the circumstances you're going to be placed in. You have no idea about the background of the other contestants you have agreed to live with for a whole summer. Do you get to decide what footage gets aired, or more critically, what footage gets cut? No. Historically, that imbalance didn't always have to be spelled out or even warned. Because what researcher Emily Nussbaum found in her Pulitzer Prize-winning work on the history of reality TV is that form of consent at all sometimes just didn't exist. What you had were just straight up victims. Back in the 1930s, not everyone had televisions in their home, but they did have radios. And that, of course, makes sense because it was only in 1927 that Philo Farnsworth discovered his dissector tube, which was the precursor to the all-electric television. And of course, World War II comes around, and people are not necessarily concerned with getting televisions mass-produced in everybody's home. That takes a backseat to the war. But in the meantime, we have this proliferation of this reality radio that's pranks and hijinks. What made these shows so funny to audiences is that the participants had no idea what was happening to them. They were unaware that they were being singled out by this production company for this corporation to sell ads. And then the late 40s and 50s comes around, and those same shows and the creators of the show are like, oh, we could just hide a camera and then show everybody this. But that, of course, had some backlash because people thought there was a cruelty to that because the anonymity of the radio was now gone. Your humiliation, your mockery, broadcast visually, nowhere to hide. So reality TV expands, and then there's more of these shows that look like studios. You're brought on, you know you're playing a game, you're aware you're a contestant. Insufficient consent, of course, still part of it, but people are like, look, I'm here to play this fun game. And if anything, it's 15 minutes, of fame, 5 minutes of being on the television. The stakes weren't that high. They had an understanding of this. They were just here to win and leave. And audiences knew that these people were not necessarily coming to the TV to be seen, right? The dawn of social media influencing had not happened. You got your 15 minutes of fame, you kept it moving, you had the little fun of being on television and being seen by America. There was a forgiveness and a grace for that kind of excitement. There was a forgiveness and grace for you trying to maybe game that system a little more. Oh, how things have changed. Now, what you've seen on Love Island USA, especially after its very successful season last year and Bachelor in Paradise since it's come back, is an audience that is aware that these contestants are aware that they are being perceived. Everyone is perceiving everyone. There's an attention that does not fade after the show wraps. That makes the audience, like the one that watches Love Island USA, far more critical of your behavior. Audiences are sold by the production company that they are getting a product that, yes, is manufactured, but has real people with real drama. Corporations are sold the product of audience attention, and that audience attention will remain because there's just enough reality to keep them hooked. Contestants trade privacy and parity of information for the chance of exposure. That's the part they don't want to talk about too much on the show. What they do talk about is that they're trading those things for the potential to win the prize, even though you and I know that the prize of $100,000 is, yes, maybe a lot of money, but it's nothing compared to what you could get in terms of free poll stars and Cheeto contracts. And audiences know this. We're not stupid. We know the real prize is fame. But still want the drama, still want the juicy story. So you have to give the audience what they want. They want to see beautiful people in beautiful places living out juicy storylines. So audiences can sense and they get upset if you, the contestant, are not playing by the rules we all consented, audience, corporation, production company, contestants, together on. Ace openly playing the game by several steps ahead was interfering with the audience's ability to enjoy the show. In the reunion, Ace and Chelley kept repeating this line that they've been saying for a while about their beliefs about how to do the game right. This, though, however, incorrectly presupposes that there is one objective way to play Love Island, that these are well-known rules and that they are set in stone. But audiences can intuit that is not the case. One, we know production retains the power to dump people off the island whenever they want. They don't have to wait for a fire pit ceremony. They created the fire pit ceremony, for crying out loud. They can yank you off for PR reasons. Production can randomly give America through the voting app the chance to break up a couple and start a new one. The rules are not set because rules that were never changed and were fair would give contestants the chance to study and game them, which would make for bad TV. A clear path to victory is a clear path to boredom. Secondly, the contestants themselves on Love Island are creating micro social traditions that are constructed. They're not real. These are social rules that are entirely arbitrary and they change season to season. The politics of who and how you can pull someone for a chat, arbitrary. The social language around breakfast and which breakfast to bring and which girl you could bring it to, also arbitrary. The language of being closed off that's on The Bachelor or on this show, or I am falling in love with you instead of saying I am in love with you. Again, these are contextualized to the show's little micro society. They are constructions that evolve and shift to fit the contestants' needs and the show's needs. Ace and Chelley would have gotten so much less flack if they just chalked up their decisions to, man, we're just trying to do our best and it's a game. But acting like the system is fair and reasonable and it makes sense, that doesn't sit well with audiences. And it doesn't ring true for them because it isn't true. We are drawn to these shows precisely because we want to see humans disappointed. What will they do in this situation? What do they do when they are pushed? That's only possible in a situation in which production is pulling the rug all the time. Bombshells being dropped into happy couples. Twists where we go from you get to save one boy and one girl, but now you can only save one person. The audience wants a game, but fairness doesn't make for a fun one. But what does? Say it with me. Insufficient consent. Is Ace stupid for going into the show being very aware of the fact that he was being perceived and production is not necessarily going to be on his side? No. But in an attempt to beat the game and not lock in, he robbed the audience of what they saw was an authentic connection. The audience doesn't want to watch a contestant anticipate what the audience wants. In a contrived show, contrived production, the audience wants a scrap of authentic connection. Ace denying that authentic connection with Chelley for all those weeks robbed the audience of the content they wanted. It was that dissatisfaction that got Ace and Chelley dumped in the final 5 before the final 4. In the history of the show and all others, a common theme emerges. Yes, the insufficient consent, it's the most reviled part about reality television. It's the part that garners the most criticism, but it's also the most beloved.